Ladies and gentlemen, we are live for another podcast. Me, myself, Lenny March here is with Oscar Silva as always. Firstly, Oscar, how are you?
I'm very good. These are crazy times that we're living in. People are debating gorillas versus men. The UFC is struggling to find stars, but within all this case, you can count on us to break down these fights. And this is going to be no different this weekend. We have I would say, an exceptional main event between Sanhagen and Figueiredo. Also, you had that wild main event with Machado Garry and Carlos Prates. Something crazy almost happened within the last round of that fight. There's a lot to get into.
Absolutely, as you mentioned there, a lot to get into, so let's get straight into it. You talked about it there just briefly, Ian Machado Garry versus Carlos Prates in the main event of UFC. Oh, I forgot where it was already. UFC Kansas City in Missouri. Ian Machado Garry gets to the decision. It was a fantastic fight throughout 5 rounds, wasn't it, Oscar? The third 3 rounds, I would say, convincingly, Ian Machado Garry doing the better work and banking them rounds. The fourth and the fifth, the Brazilian Carlos Prates sort of stepped up a little bit. Maybe was a little bit too late to try and find the timing of Ian Garry and eventually start to crack him a little bit with the ground and pound in the fifth round. Would you say if there's maybe a minute, maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a little bit longer, the fight could be a wrap?
I would say no because Machado Garry was given the time to recover, so that those little shots wouldn't have done the damage that they would have done when he was hurt. When he was crawling away, the fact that Carlos Prates did not unload is insane to me. He was more concerned with try to scramble, defend any grappling. He should have just seen red and gone for it. But a factor here is that the cardio was questionable on both sides in many points of this fight. We thought Machado Garry would have this big advantage, but he slowed down. And then Prates slowed down as well. So a very strange fight in the later rounds, but at the end of the day, this went as I predicted. Machado Garry had the better footwork and just was more active out there. I pointed out that Prates was reliant on the finish, and if he didn't get a finish, he would find himself getting outpointed. That's what happened here. Machado Garry has shown once again that his defense holds up more often than not. So this is a guy that's a one win away from a title shot, and there's a lot of guys that are very interested in fighting him because of the reputation that precedes him.
Yeah, Ian Machado Garry now the alternate, of Bilal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov. I do believe. So that's interesting to see him obviously getting that shot and getting that chance. One of the best in the division at 170 pounds. I think it must be said. Put on a fantastic performance throughout 3 rounds. Carlos Prates showed a little bit of dog in him, and in that fourth and the fifth. Great to see, but Ian Garry put on a fantastic performance. It's good to see him winning because you talked before, before we went on there, obviously UFC lacking a few stars. I do see stardom potential in Ian Garry. I feel like if he can win that belt, the championship belt, I think that could be a superstar. Sort of the trajectory of Sean O'Malley, quite similar.
I don't necessarily see that star potential for him because he's had so many passionate haters, and it's not the kind of haters that I think will turn around on him. I feel like people have made up their mind about who he is and who he relates with, and it's going to be very difficult to reverse that. In fact, I think it's unreversible at this point, but that will still draw. I feel like it'll be the Floyd Mayweather thing when we're rooting against him, but we'll pay to watch him. So that works for him, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great little sentence there. I like that. Great win for Ian Garry. He gets the victory over Carlos Prates. He improves to 16-1, and now looks to eye another title shot. And let's see what happens. Ming Yang Sang versus Anthony Smith. It felt like Anthony Smith obviously had the wrong mentality. He was, retired, essentially retired heading into this one. His head went into it. His dedication, his motivation was nowhere near where it needed to be heading into a fight. And I think it showed straight away. It was quite disturbing scenes. And I'm quite happy to see Anthony Smith kind of bow out after this fight. He was old. He left a little bit of a legacy. Who knows? In an alternate universe, Anthony Smith could have took that DQ win and been a champion. Probably one of the biggest mistakes in his career. He probably might want to admit it, but he could have took the win that night and held the championship and had a rematch against John Jones.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The integrity stood up there, but for Anthony Smith, he's gotten a lot of scrutiny this past week, especially over the fact that he received a very extended video package that was a tribute to his career. And if we're being honest, this guy is not a Hall of Fame caliber fighter by any stretch of the imagination, but a very respectable fighter. He stayed in that top 15, since 2018, I think it was. So you have to give him some ups for that. But Mingyang Zhang looked better than ever. Like, I don't care who he was fighting in this fight, he looked awesome. He was so aggressive, and he was constantly throwing that step-in elbow that we rarely see in the sport. So he's being innovative with this offense. I don't see him cracking the top 10 necessarily, but he's going to be a fun guy to watch who's either going to finish guys or get finished himself. So he's a nice little newcomer in this division. He just got ranked. But for Anthony Smith, I was a fan of the guy, but that doesn't mean he was necessarily an elite fighter the whole time. But a fun fighter at that still deserves a little bit of props for the career he pulled off, especially when you get cut from the UFC to come back and fight for the title. You have to give him props.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see Anthony Smith kind of bow out on his own terms. And a little bit of a scene at the end of the fight. I don't know whether you remember it, but him putting up the middle finger to that fan. So, it wasn't great to see, obviously, but I'm happy to see Anthony Smith bow out and, set the tone at the end of his career. And I do think he's good on the mic as well, on the desk. So there still is a career inside mixed martial arts for him. So it would be good to see him kicking about still and doing what what he loves, talking about fights, watching some fights. A great win from the Chinese Mingyang Zhang. He looks like a danger at 205 pounds. He's a big old boy.
Yeah, I feel like the Bogdan Guskov fight is calling his name. That both guys are in the same spot. And whoever wins that one for sure could get a guy like Volkan Oezdemir or something like that. But as I said, I do see some serious challenges for him. Like, there's no way he would survive against a Yair Prohaska or Jamal Hill type, but still, he's going to stick around.
Absolutely agree. Next one, we had David Onama. He got the victory over Giga Chikadze. Giga falling on tough times, isn't he? Now 15 and 5 as a professional in mixed martial arts. A tough one for him at 145 pounds. I do believe he missed weight for this one. So he came in at 147 pounds, just 1 pound over the limit. That the hardest weight is obviously the last few pounds. It's tough when you stop sweating, nothing's going your way. David Onama, though, you had showed a little bit of power in this one. Talk to me about what he showed in this one for you. A little bit of a different game, more technical. And, with Giga, one of the most technical, 145 pounds, I think it's quite impressive to kind of stand there and strike with him.
Yeah, I feel like this was a very close fight, especially when it came to the scorecards. But at the end of the day, the judges liked David Onama's control time. I felt that Giga Chikadze in totality had the bigger moments. He had Onama hurt many times. Giga got hurt one time in the first round, but overall, I feel like Giga had a solid performance, but he just couldn't defend the takedowns. And this has been something that has plagued him his whole career. He lost on Contender Series because he got out grappled when he fought Calvin Kattar. The reason he was so tired was he got controlled for 4 minutes in the first round, so he was worn out. So the key to beating Giga is you got to wrestle him. And David Onama, in my opinion, I feel like he should have wrestled a little bit more, and he could have been more dominant here. But still, he got the W. I feel like David Onama has shown his limitations many times before, but here he was able to do it against a veteran, a guy he even admitted he looked up to years ago. So Giga Chikadze, of course, is getting older. He's not going to return to the top 10, but David Onama is a young guy that will be exciting in the future.
Absolutely. A great win for David Onama. He improves to 14-2, 145 pounds. Good to see how he progresses in the featherweight division. Next one, we had Abus Magomedov, and he took on Michel Pereira. Abus, we talked about him, he had that, a good treatment from the UFC. Came in, he made a statement. He had them shots against Robert Whittaker. Didn't go. Oh, sorry, it wasn't Robert Whittaker, was it?
Sean Strickland.
That's it, against Sean Strickland. Came up short, but he still was a great powerhouse at 185 pounds. He beat Michel Pereira, who's 2 fights losses in a row now, but Showed a bit of a evolution to his game since his first UFC fight. A good win for a boost, is it not?
This is a horrible win. I feel like his stock went down here. I know he got a win over a ranked guy, but everybody was ridiculing both guys after the fight. People are calling for both guys to be cut. The crowd was booing. I wouldn't go as far. If I was in the crowd, I wouldn't have booed, but this was an absolute letdown in every way possible. When you picture a Michelle Pineda fight, you picture explosivity, aggression. We saw none of that. And we thought he was maybe saving a little bit for a second win or something like that. No, he just never started fighting, honestly. This was a horrible performance, especially by Michelle. But Abus could have been finished by any guy with half decent cardio and aggression in that third round.
Absolutely. Randy Brown was getting the victory over Nicholas Dalby, though. That was an impressive performance. He gets a knockout victory, put the lights out of the Danish, smoked him in 2 rounds. A fantastic win for Randy Brown. I said I called him Rudy Brown. But he's a big frame at 170 pounds. It just, he's had some great wins. I feel like with Randy, he's great. But I think when it comes to top 15, top 10, I think he's always going to be beaten and get struggled. I think he's a great, gatekeeper, or at least, top 20 opponent outside of the top 15. So I think he's vital for this promotion. As you can see there, he got the fight of the night. It was a fantastic fight from both men. But Randy Brown eventually getting that victory in round 2 with a right hook, put the lights out of Nicholas Dalby. A fantastic win. He was sharp. A great fight all round to watch, wasn't it, as a fan?
It sure was. Nicholas Dalby has always been competitive in some of these fights, but recently he was having a really good run until he lost his last one. And in this one, he was having a very tough time dealing with that range. So he decided to just crouch the pocket very aggressively, and he paid for it many times. But still, with a broken nose, we thought he was like done early on. And then he just drops Randy Brown and gets on top of him. So I knew this was going to be a wild fight. And then in round 2, they just go full Holloway Gaethje, and they swing in the pocket till somebody topples over. And that man was Dalby, who had never been finished before this. So Randy Brown uncharacteristically getting a knockout. He's not a knockout guy. We predicted him to win this by decision, keep it safe. But he was very aggressive. I feel like the crowd really helped these guys put on a show, and it was deafening, legitimately deafening when Randy Brown got that knockout.
Yeah, I got to say that I thought the crowd throughout the full night was fantastic. It's good to see these crowds going inside the UFC, and I'm just kind of hoping this spurs them on to keep doing it, because the atmosphere is electric, and this is what the UFC fans want, and essentially just we need it. We need it to keep the the fire burning inside our soul, sort of thing. Ikram Alaskarov, he came back after a loss against Robert Whittaker. This one was a big one for him. He was a heavy favorite, as you can see according to Tapology. He came against Andre Muniz, who a few years ago was I would say the man, obviously submitting Jacare Souza, breaking his arm. Yeah, I think everyone was fearing his grappling. Ikram Alaskarov went in there, put the lights out of him. It was fantastic. As I talked about, rebounded from a previous loss within the first round as well. And he showed his striking prowess. I'm really impressed to see Ikram back in the winning column. I think he could be trouble for 185 pounds. His only losses, he's 16-2 as a professional. Only losses, we mentioned this last week, is to Robert Whittaker and Hamzat Chimaev. Other than that, I think he'll go on to beat a lot of these guys. So I think he's a dangerous opponent at 185 pounds.
Yeah, and he really showed off his power here. A lot of people see the last name and they think he's a wrestler, but he can do both. That's a great thing about Ikram. He can knock you out and he can submit you on the ground. I'm sure he could have handled Muniz on the ground if it was necessary. So a very easy night at the office for Ikram.
Absolutely agree. Good win for Ikram. Good to see him improving to 16-2 as a professional. Next one, we had Matt Chanel versus Jimmy Flick. I think I predicted a win for Jimmy Flick last week. Didn't go my way. Matt Chanel utilized, a little bit of his striking and edged out Jimmy Flick. It was a closely contested 3-round fight, wasn't it? A great one. Not a great one, but it was a decent one at 125 pounds.
I feel like this was very high drama because Matt Chanel kept on going for takedowns. Fleck kept on trying to submit him with that guillotine. It was back and forth with the submission attempts. I do love those kind of fights just as much as I like a good old brawl because somebody might tap out at any time. But all the blood on Jimmy Flick's face and all the sweat made it easy for him to get out of those submission attempts. So, very fun fight for Matt Chanel. This is the kind of well, he's retired now, actually. But if he was going to continue, this would be the kind of fight that makes sense for him. But for Jimmy Flick, yeah, he's just never really going to make it into the top 10 in this weight class, let alone the top 15. So I hate to say it, but he's kind of a stepping stone at this point.
Absolutely agree. Evan Elder went into the fight against Gay Jong. Big. I think it is big expectations for both men. But Evan Elder went in there and 30-27 dominated Gao Jong in this fight. Secured a unanimous decision victory. Controlled the pace and landed the more significant strikes. Oscar, it was a great performance from Evan Elder. Are you impressed with him? Talk to me about the future and the prospect. 155 pounds should be a good one.
Yeah, the young man learned respect for his elders out there. It was an easy, low-hanging fruit joke there, but I had to do it. Gage Young never looked threatening in this fight, if you ask me. He was throwing out volume, but he never put his foot on the gas and really tried to go for it. Neither did Elder, and I believe that's due to the fact that they had like a friendship heading into this. So they trained with each other. They didn't want to hurt each other really, and it kind of showed. Even the crowd started booing. It wasn't like they weren't fighting at a high pace, but you could tell that they were holding back a little bit, and it always sucks when that happens in a fight.
Absolutely agree. Chris Gutierrez got the win over John Castaneda, and I feel like every time we see Chris Gutierrez, he either looks good and gets a very decisive victory, or he's in his split decisions. I feel like we've seen a lot of these split decision where Chris Gutierrez he can't help but make it a close fight. He's good to watch though. It's close. The striking's beautiful to watch, and Joe Castaneda, he was bringing it as well. I think this was closely contested. It was a fantastic fight to watch, and I feel like both fighters had their moments. But obviously, Chris Gutierrez just kind of edging it out with the slightest of margins. A good fight to watch, wasn't it? At 125 pounds, Oscar.
Yeah, for me, I was on Castaneda's side here because I thought he was going to grapple, and he didn't grapple a lot in this fight, and it really bit him in the ass here. Chris Gutierrez was having a great performance on the feet. He was using all of his tools effectively, and he even scored a knockdown with his hands, which he never does. This guy always is very leg kick heavy, so he's getting more diverse with the attacks, and John Castaneda was just happy to oblige him on the feet. Which made no sense to me. The guy should have been chasing takedowns from round one, but it was too little too late. Lost the decision, rightfully so.
Absolutely. It was a great fight to watch at 145 pounds. Chris Gutierrez, as I talked about, and these exciting fights or, in a close split decision victory, it was good to watch. We'll talk about what wasn't really close. That was Damon Blackshear versus Alexander Haley, 30-27 all scorecards. Damon Blackshear kind of utilizing his superior grappling and just sort of controlling him at will.
Yeah, this was your classic Blackshear performance. He kind of got a reputation as a finisher, but the majority of the time he's going out there getting that control time. The submission didn't open up for him here, but on the feet, he was looking better than ever. And the commentators kept on pointing it out that you would never know he was such a good grappler by how good he was striking out there. So new wrinkles to the game for Damon Blackshear. You love to see it.
Yeah, fantastic win for Damon Blackshear. And I feel like one of the most anticipated debuts of the week was Malcolm Waymaker, making his debut. I think there was a lot of talk with him going into this one. And he's a great stud. Look at his Instagram. Just a kid that is, I think everyone can relate to, wanting to make a living, wanting to make a dream happen. And he did make his dream happen this weekend. He got the 50K bonus. He got the knockout of the night, performance of the night, sorry. And he has quit his job. And now he can take this full time. And I think that's, it's only up from here. I think we're going to see the better version of him next time out. And I think if I look at this victory in his debut against Cameron Simon, who a few fights ago was no jokes until he ran into a few people. And now it's 3 losses back to back to back. But this one, I got to look at Cameron Simon and the people that he fought. I think this one impressed me the most. I think Malcolm Wellmaker went in there and really put it on him and put a fantastic performance. He got the knockout in round 1, a counter right hook, beautifully placed. Essentially Cameron Simon was hit and he didn't want to get hit no more. It was fantastic praise. Oscar, talk to me about Malcolm Wellmaker. There was a lot of talk of him heading into this one. He delivered, didn't he?
He sure did. He exceeded my expectations. I thought Cameron Simon was going to look better than ever, but at the end of the day, he didn't change a thing out there, if we're being honest. He fights like Dricus du Plessis, but he doesn't have that physicality that Dricus du Plessis has. So all he has really is that bad defense. And when you're fighting a guy that hits as hard as Wellmaker, it's ill-advised. I don't know why he didn't wrestle, because that was his best shot at winning here. But yeah, just left that chin wide open. Just no regard for his defense, and he paid for it. Wellmaker, I don't really see because he's 30 now, so he started a bit late. That's the only downside. If this guy was 25, I'd be saying something different, but I don't see him as a legit contender in the future, unfortunately, because of the age.
Yeah, tough one for Malcolm, obviously being the age. Starting the career late, but he's made it a reality. He's quit his job. I think it's a great success story. Interesting to see how he turns out inside the UFC. A lot to ask for him, as you mentioned, being the age and stuff like that. So next one, we've got Jacqueline Norman getting the win over Polyana Viana. Good to see Polyana Viana in the cage, whether that's on the scales or not. It's good to put a fantastic win from Jacqueline Norman. Went in there, utilised her grappling prowess. Eventually got the rear naked choke against Polyana Viana. A fantastic win for Jacqueline. I think she's a really good prospect. I think this card was great for future prospects. I think there could be a few on this card that we look at and think, God, they fought on the card also. So a good win for the Brazilian, but obviously a tough spot for Polyana Viana now. Talk to me about Jacqueline. Are you impressed?
This was exactly what I expected. Polyana Viana, she's billed as this jiu-jitsu black belt. The submission defense is nowhere to be found, it seems. So, yeah, this was exactly as I expected. She can do this to most girls, but if she runs into a Sam Hughes type with that tenacious submission defense, it's going to be bad news.
Absolutely agree. First part of the night, we had we had Timothy Kwamba defeating Roberto Romero in the second fight before we get to Jocelyn Edwards. Kwamba delivered a fantastic, impressive flying knee straight down the middle and eventually finished the Mexican. This was a fantastic way to start the card. Obviously, we had 4 finishes back to back to back. It really set the tone. But talk to me about Timmy. Went in there, flying knee, loves the flashy strikes. He got the finish over the Mexican, who I thought would be a little bit more durable than that. But obviously too much to ask. Timmy went in there and put it on him.
Yeah, Timmy looked super sharp. Romero, we thought he was going to be more durable because his first fight was against David Onama, and he went to the scorecards with him. But it appears that beating took a toll on him. I will say this was an early stoppage. He hit him with the flying knee, and he was definitely not out. He got up basically immediately, almost tried to attack Timmy after the fight. But I feel like it was an inevitability was Timmy winning the fight. He was getting the timing on every strike here and looking much improved.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we'll get to the first fight now. And that was Jocelyn Edwards against Chelsea Chandler. I think the moral victory for Chelsea Chandler in this one is that she made £135. But although she won't be ranked at £135 probably anymore, Jocelyn Edwards came in there first round, overwhelmed Chelsea Chandler, put the pressure on and got the finish. Hooks up against the cage, made a fold like a deck chair. It was a great win. I don't know what Jocelyn Edwards seen going into the fight, but clearly they had a game plan and they utilized it to perfection. It was pressure. It was calculated pressure. The hooks landed. They got the finish.
Yeah, Chelsea Chandler looked like an amateur fighter out there with some of that technique. It was ugly out there. The defense was poor. I can't believe she was ranked. I cannot believe there's a division in the UFC where Chelsea Chandler is a ranked fighter, but that's no longer the case. Edwards takes her spot, and good on Edwards because Edwards is super busy. She wins a lot of these fights. Even some of the fights she's lost were close fights. So I like to see someone as hardworking as her, someone who's making improvements, went out there super aggressive, got a finish, which we rarely see in round 1 in these women's fights.
Absolutely agree. As I mentioned, it was a fantastic way to start the card. We had 4 finishes back to back to back before we went to a couple of decisions, and then we had Ikram, Randy Brown putting on their performances. Then we had Min Yang Sang in the co-main event. Oscar, from 0 to 10, how would you rate this card? I think it was a great card to watch, and we had some fantastic highlights. It feels like the UFC is starting to pick up a little bit of momentum now.
Yeah, I would say this is a 7 to 8 card. Yeah, this was as good as it could have been. Sure, there were some letdowns, but there were some fights that blew past any expectations we had. Who was predicting a first round knockout up in the card? Nobody.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to watch. This weekend, though, we do have a few MMA fights and a boxing fight to talk about. Obviously, with Canelo and Skull happening. Well, I'd love to talk about Eubank Benn. Did you get the chance to watch Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn?
Unfortunately, not. But I heard he was a fight of the year contender. So tell me more.
It was an absolute banger from start to finish. These boys went at it with their dads watching ringside. We have Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn watching ringside, which was a fantastic poetic story because once upon a time, them two men fought each other in 1990 and 1993. They went at it, they went toe to toe, and I believe this is the first time in history where two fighters of sons have now fought each other. So how the story played out and the fight played out was Chris Eubank was just way too experienced. The jab was to perfection that night. It was always in the Conor Benn's face. He never let him breathe. And he wasn't scared to sort of stand and trade with Conor Benn. I was really surprised by that because I thought Conor Benn was definitely the better hitter, the bigger hitter, has that knockout punch power, which he did clip Chris Eubank a few times, made him on skates, chicken legs as you will. But if you have a chance, just go back and watch the 12th round. Just the 12th round alone, because that round might be round of the year. One of the best fights I've ever seen in boxing, and that was one of the best rounds I've ever seen in my life. They're kind of just rubbing up against each other, chest to chest, throwing hooks, throwing uppercuts. It was a fantastic poetic story. Chris Eubank obviously getting the victory that night, in which I thought he deserved. I think it was a great fight. I don't agree with the scorecards that night. It was 8 rounds to 4 to Chris Eubank. I thought it was closer than that. I thought it, 7-5, 6-4, if the maths is correct. Sorry, but I thought it was closer than that. But Chris Eubank got the win. It was a fantastic fight, and I urge you, Oscar, if you ever have 3 minutes, I know that's a boxing round. 3 minutes, go watch the 12th round because you won't be disappointed. It was great from start to finish.
Well, I'll make sure to do that. The boxing scene is heating up. We have multiple big fights this weekend. Canelo fighting, Ryan Garcia fighting, Devin Haney fighting. This is a very exciting time to be a boxing fan.
Completely agree. We'll talk about being an MMA fan. We've got PFL this weekend. I've clicked the wrong screen. I've clicked it again. And we got PFL returning with another event. We've got Phil Davies in the main event against Rob Wilkinson. Valentino Moldovsky against Sergey, that guy. Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Carl Moore. A decent card for PFL. We've got Simeon Power returning. Oscar, is there a few fights that you're looking forward to this one? We have Alexander Romanov, the PFL debut.
Yeah, I really liked some of Romanov's fights in the UFC. We thought this guy was going to be like a title contender at some point. So it would be very interesting to see if he can run over Tim Johnson, as he's did many guys. Wow, Nascimento is on the card. I didn't even know this.
Yeah.
They get Carl Williams. Holy crap, we're having some former ranked heavyweights on this card. This is crazy. They stole some of these guys.
He did as an alternate as well. Do you remember Jamal Pogues?
Pogues, yeah, I do.
Yeah, he weighed in as an alternate.
Wow. So a lot of guys are jumping ship despite the complaints from a couple of guys. But I do like Phil Davis's resume. It's very impressive if you look it up. But Rob Wilkinson, of course, got caught with steroids. So now that he's off of them, who knows if he's going to be still as effective. Obviously, he's fought since then and has had a loss or two. So I think Phil Davis should win that one. And Moldovsky is a legit player in the weight class. He's probably the favorite to win the heavyweight tournament, considering that he's on the younger side. He's not like some of these older guys in the tournament.
Yeah, completely agree. Fantastic event. Obviously, Simeon Powell being an Englishman, I'm excited to see him. And obviously, we got Abraham Babley as well. And obviously, Carl Moore. If you've seen Carl Moore fight, you might have seen him last time out against Corey Anderson. And it was a fantastic fight, highly contested. I look forward to seeing how he gets on in the PFL tournament. Should be a good one, though. PFL puts on some really good events. You might not look at the event and think, wow, that's the name value is not as great as the UFC, but I do think they do produce some really good fights. I think the last event they had like 7 finishes out of 9 fights. So they do produce some absolutely fantastic fights. You got to watch it, but obviously the UFC have just absolutely monopolied the whole market. That no one can compete with them. And we'll talk about quickly before we move on to obviously the UFC is Canelo. Sal Canelo Alvarez, as he talked about a little bit earlier there, he returns against William Skull. As a Mexican, Oscar, obviously you'd be rooting probably for your man Canelo Alvarez. Do you expect him to get the win?
Absolutely. My dad doesn't watch any fights. He only watches Canelo fights. And every year on the Cinco de Mayo weekend, he makes sure to have an event at the house and watch the Canelo fights. I'm usually never home because I'm out watching the UFC fights at a friend's house. But yeah, it's a big deal in my household. And obviously, rarely loses. They always give him these favorable matchups. This is not as easy as some others, but he should for sure win this one. I would say by decision.
Agree. It's a great event though. You got Jamie Munguia as well, another Mexican legend in the boxing scene. Martin Bacoli, he's coming back after a short notice fight against Daniel Dubois. So that's a great heavyweight fight if you're going to watch that one as well. So yeah, I expect Canelo Alvarez to win. Should be a good one for him. I think it'll be quite a dominant victory. He's always the smaller man, obviously being at these high weights. As you can see, he's 5'8" compared to 5'11". But I think that's where he really comes on. He comes in. Look at that. He's a minus 3,000 favorite.
Wow,
he's a big
insane.
Favorite. A plus 1,300.
I was expecting a 6-1, not 13-1.
That's pretty crazy. But yeah. He's always been the smaller man at these bigger weights. That's what he thrives on, getting inside the pocket and throwing some bombs. I expect him to get the victory at super middleweight and kind of unifying the belts at super middleweight, and he'll be the undisputed champion of the world. Should be a good night of fights. We've got a lot going on, and we'll talk about the UFC because we've got a great card this weekend. Corey Sandhagen versus Davison Figueiredo in the main event. Davison Figueiredo, has stepped up to 135 pounds and looking to become a player at 135 pounds since moving up from 125 pounds flyweight. Oscar, talk to me about this. Title implications, a lot riding into this one. Corey Sandhagen looking to kind of prove his worth and get that second title or get another title shot. Davison Figueiredo looking to step up for a weight class and make that that second title shot in a different weight class. A big one, I believe, at 135 pounds. How do you expect it to go down?
Yeah, for Figueiredo, he's had a pretty good run at bantamweight so far. He had that win streak. He beat champions, but I feel like he's hit his ceiling. He fought Petr Yan, the former undisputed champion of the weight class, and he had a competitive fight with him. He was able to hurt him here and there, but at the end of the day, he got outclassed. And Corey Sandhagen is another guy that is super technical, has very clean striking, capable grappling. This is a bad mix for Figueiredo. And also, he's a bigger man than Petr Yan. He's tall and skinny. Used to be a featherweight, in fact. So I think that the size discrepancy is going to be a factor here. And Figueiredo's going to have a tough time getting into the pocket with Sandhagen. And if he does, I feel like he's going to pay for it. Because Sandhagen does have that speed despite the size. So for Figueiredo, if I were him, I would be looking to wrestle here. He has shown an ability to wrestle. And against Cody Garbrandt, he was able to finish him with that rear naked choke. So that's what I would attempt if I was Figueiredo. Because on the feet, outside of some big shots, he's going to be getting outpointed most of the time. So Sandhagen by decision is the pick here. But with Figueiredo, he has shown an ability to make a finish happen out of nowhere. But Sandhagen has shown durability for most of these fights. The last time he got finished, if I'm not mistaken, was against Aljamain Sterling. So outside of that, he's been pretty clean with the defense.
Yeah, if you look at his losses here, we'll go through the record. Obviously, being inside, as you can see there, 10-4 inside the UFC. Been around for a little bit now. But if you look at the losses, they come to legit competition, except from that first one against Jamel Emmers. But if you look at the competition that he's lost to, Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, which was a split decision, very close fight, Peter Yan, Umar Nurmagomedov. We're talking some of the best guys at 135 pounds. These are men that obviously, if you look at who he's beat, he's beaten Yadong Song, beaten Marlon Vera, beat Rob Front. That was a Figueiredo, a champion in his own right. Being in these 5-round situations, been in these championship situations against Brandon Moreno in the past with that, that fantastic 4th fight. Whatever we've seen there, beat Alex Perez, beat Joseph Benavidez. But if you kind of look how in depth the 125-pound division was in 2020. Oscar, actually, I'm going to quickly fire a question off to you. Do you look at them victories and impressed with the resume of Figueiredo? He was a champion. I think there is credit. But if you look at the 125-pound division, I think the best win at 125 pound was obviously Pantoja, who's gone on to be a champion. But Tim Elliott, Benavidez, Alex Perez, and obviously the draws and the losses against Brandon Moreno. 125 pounds back in 2020 and 2022 wasn't as stacked as possibly it could be now.
I think those are still very great wins because some of those guys are still players in the division. And I'm talking about Moreno and Perez. Those are still guys in the top 10. And Elliott has found a way to stick around. And for Benavidez, say what you want, but his last fight was a title fight. He never had this major decline. So for Figueiredo, he's a legend in my book. Probably, I would say, top 5 best flyweights of all time. And he's shown that those skills still transfer at a bigger weight class against multiple ranked guys. So I don't deduct anything from his legacy.
Yeah, as you can see, as soon as he stepped up to 135 pounds, 3 wins back to back. He's a different man at 135 pounds. There was a picture that came out earlier in the week of him looking absolutely massive heading into this fight. I think even though he stepped up 135 pounds, I expect him to be the bigger man on Fight Night.
I meant the bigger man being Sandhagen in terms of the reach and the height. But yeah, you're right. Figueiredo is a little ball of muscle out there. The guy used to have these hellacious weight cuts to fly with. So he for sure can hold his own at bantamweight.
Yeah, completely agree. Should be a good one, 135 pounds. As I mentioned, a pivotal clash. Former flyweight champion Davison Figueiredo looking to kind of solidify his position at 135 pounds. And obviously, Sandhagen looks to rebound off that loss against Umar Nurmagomedov, kind of put himself back into the title picture. But I completely agree with you. I think the pick is Corey Sandhagen. Obviously, Figueiredo coming to loss against Peter Yan was a close fight. He had moments in that fight. But I think Corey Sandhagen is a completely different fight, a completely different style. As you talked about, he's longer, he's more rangier. He's going to put them strikes in your face, and you're not going to be able to touch him. I think what's going to be important in this fight is obviously Davison has a bit of a wide stance. He has his arms out there. I think the kicks, and we know how good the kicks of Corey Sandhagen are, is going to be the game plan for him. I think he's going to go in there and fire them very, very heavily and quick.
Yeah, the long range attacks are going to be key here for Sandhagen because he does not want to exchange in the pocket with Figueiredo. That's the last thing he wants to do. So, Corey Sandhagen by unanimous decision. I think there's a scenario where he wins a 49-46 and Figueiredo just wins one round, maybe rocks him. But outside of that, I don't see much happening for Figgy.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I've got Corey Sandhagen in that fight. We talk about the co-main event of the evening. We've got Bo Nickel, undefeated, 7-0, has looked great. Since what we're seeing inside the UFC, he's an undefeated prospect. He's taken on the toughest test of his career. But we're going to say that every time he fights from now on because he's stepped up in competition every single time. He takes on a former one championship double champion in Rene de Riddler, 19-2, been at the highest in a different promotion, has fought these 5 rounds, championship fights, and has looked great He's came inside the UFC. He's had a few good wins. As you can look here, he's 2-0 inside the UFC, and now he takes on Bo Nickel. The UFC have threw him into a little bit of a shark tank here with Bo Nickel. But this also could be a little bit of a fight where we don't know what's going to happen. Is the prospect going to be able to, withhold and beat, a former champion, a former double champion in a different promotion with loads more experience than him? For me, I'm looking at this. I think it's clear to me that I think the pick is Bo Nickel. I've looked at René de Riddler and how he fights. I think he's more of a grappling style. I think his striking is not something to write home about. Neither is Bo Nickel. I think if this goes to straight grappling, and I think they're both just going to cancel each other out, I see this being quite a scrappy win for Bo Nickel. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, Bo Nickel doesn't care if he's boring or not. He cares about winning. He cares about improving his skills. And if I'm Bo Nickel, why would you wrestle with the guy who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a guy who who his bread and butter is that grappling? He submitted GM3, who has the most finishes in the weight class. So this is a dangerous guy on the ground. No need to play around with him on the feet. D. Ritter is super lackluster, I would say. The striking defense is just not there. He's there to be hit. The hands are low quite often. The chin is up. Bo Nickel has shown he has power. So we could see a situation where maybe he gets a knockout hit. But as we saw with Paul Craig, he doesn't really want to hunt that finish. He's happy to point fight, basically. So Bo Nickel will keep it clean out there. I think he tries for a couple of takedowns, but they're going to be at the end of the round where it's not going to give a lot of time for D. Ritter to get his submissions going. So Bo Nickel, by decision, he probably wins 30-27 here.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think René de Riddler is good. Could have been better if we'd seen him inside the UFC a few years ago. Obviously, 34 years of age. Had that one fight outside the UFC before making, the step over. I think we're just seeing the levels of the UFC. Bo Nickel was just a completely different level. The grappling we talked about, the wrestling. I don't expect René de Riddler being able to take Bo Nickel down, but who knows? If it's the third round, both men are tired, anything can happen. Should be a good one in the co-main event, 185 pounds. I've also got Bo Nickel in that one. We're talking about 170 pound fight next, and that's Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. A battle between two grizzled vets inside the UFC. We'll talk about what to expect of Santiago Ponzinibbio. I'd say primarily a striker. Daniel Rodriguez looking to strike as well, has power in his hands. He's full on some little bit of bad losses in the past few years, but the UFC favour him because they've done him a favor. He's done them a favour. So, Oscar, what do you expect in this one? 170 pounds between two guys that fought inside the UFC for a long time. Ponzinibbio, look at his record, 12-7 inside the UFC. Daniel Rodriguez, 8-4. A lot of experience for both men in this one.
Yeah, for both guys, they're both 38 now. Their best days are behind them, but they still have the capability to go 3 rounds comfortably and put on a solid striking performance. But it's all about who do you think is more on the decline at this point. And I would say it's actually D-Rod at this point, Daniel Rodriguez, because he fought Alex Morono. Alex Morono, another guy who's older, who's slow. And that was a competitive fight somehow, some way. Morono, realistically, the D-Rod of old would have ran through that version of Morono, but he didn't. And it gave me a lot of hesitancy because he looked slow out there. Ponzinibbio is not the quickest guy out there, but he still has, I would say, more speed than D-Rod at this point. So I think the speed is going to play a factor here. I also think that Santiago Ponzinibbio is a very tenacious guy. He fought Morono as well when Morono was a little bit better. And in round 3 of that fight, he was losing, and he just pushes the issue, walks forward, swings bombs, and gets the knockout with a comeback victory. So I think we see a similar situation here. I think the first 2 rounds are going to be kind of a lackadaisical pace. In round 3, Ponzinibbio is going to up the pressure and finish this fight with a knockout.
Yeah, I've got Santiago in this fight. I think he gets the fight, the fight done. He gets his hand raised at the full 15 minutes. I think there's going to be a few moments where he's going to be in trouble. D-Rod, Might not be the quickest, might not be the most technical with his striking, but the one thing that we can guarantee that he has produced some power in his hands in the past, and if he could connect on Santiago, you never know what's going to happen. He could put the lights out. I expect Santiago to stay clear of that, and I expect him to get a victory on this weekend against Daniel Rodriguez. This is a great, well-matched fight. Should be high-paced, hopefully. A lot of strikes going in there. And two experienced men, I think this is a great matchmaking from the UFC.
Yeah, it sure is. This would have been, as I said, a little more exciting earlier in their careers, but still a solid scrap.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Next one, at 135 pounds, we have Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. About between Montel Jackson, who he's been in the UFC for a very long time. It feels 8-2 inside the UFC, 14-2 as a professional. We'll have a quick look at obviously his record. Obviously, last few fights, beating Dana Blackshear. There's one thing that we can guarantee with Montel Jackson. You do not want to get hit by this man because he has dynamite in his hands at 135 pounds. This guy has, I believe there's a crazy stat of he has his hands are as a size of his
bigger than Ngannou's. They're bigger than Ngannou's.
There we go. His hands are bigger than Ngannou's, and if you don't know who Francis Ngannou is, he was a UFC heavyweight champion and heavyweight, and he's got bigger hands than a heavyweight. So there's one thing that Daniel can't afford to do is get cracked by the fists of Montel Jackson. Oscar, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I see Daniel Marcos trying to put a pace on Montel Jackson, but ultimately Montel Jackson will overwhelm him with that power, and the reach advantage here will matter. As you can see, this is a 6-inch reach advantage for Montel Jackson. So Daniel Marcos is going to do everything he can to close the distance, but he's going to pay every time. He's probably going to get dropped a couple times, but the Peruvians, all of them are super durable, and all of them have really good cardio. So in round 3, Marcos for sure will have an edge, but it won't matter because Montel will have done too much damage in the early rounds. Montel Jackson has a very weird, sure he has power, but he has these weird fights where he doesn't finish guys that are easily finishable. Like he got JP Bays. He dropped him, 4 times, couldn't finish him. So sometimes he's just not aggressive as he needs to be. But hey, his last fight was Montel Jackson. Damon Blackshear. It was 20 seconds into the fight where he gets the knockout. So very unpredictable guy, who, in my opinion, would have been ranked if he was more active. You're muted. So I will just continue talking about Montel Jackson here. The pick is going to be Montel Jackson by decision. Lenny's back with us.
Yes, I'm back. My mic fell. I don't know if you can hear me. Are we all good?
Yes, we're good.
All right, fantastic. Sorry about the technical difficulties. But yeah, I've got Montel Jackson as well. Should be a good one. Daniel Marcos undefeated, looking to go on up, put on a good performance. I think this is a great one. Daniel Marcos, obviously 32 years of age. Montel Jackson, 33. I think it's now or never for both guys. Montel Jackson, as we talked about, been inside the UFC for years now. As you talked about, if he was more active and fought a lot more often, this guy could be in the top 15, top 10, absolutely. I think he's on the edge of that already. I think maybe a win over Daniel Marcos could see them go into the top 15. I'd like to see him get a bit of a quick trajectory and get these big fights because he's not got long left in the career at 135 pounds. So I expect him to get the win over Daniel Marcos. And I'm going with a knockout as well. I think he knocks him out. You talked them being durable and have good cardio, but with heavyweight hands and the way he hits and how fast he is, it could be a quick night for Montel Jackson. Let's see how it all plays out on the weekend. Next one, we had another 135 pounds battle between Cameron Smotherman and Serhi Sidi. Serhi Sidi came off the contender series. Luke Kelly interviewed him before he went on that, and I believe before his UFC debut. He takes on Cameron Smotherman. 135-pound battle between two, prospects at bantamweight. Serhi Sidi, the Canadian, is the favorite, the slight favorite heading into this one. Oscar, is that justified? Who do you expect to get their hand raised?
I think it is justified because there's a little bit of durability concerns on the Smotherman side. Smotherman fought on Contender Series against Gregorio Charalampos, who has been cut from the UFC since then because he had 2 back-to-back losses. He was a very limited striker, but he had power. And I think City might have the power necessary to finish Cameron Smotherman here. I think Smotherman struggles a lot against grapplers. City's not going to shoot on him, so this is a more favorable matchup for him than other fights. He impressed me when he was able to defeat a flyweight in his last fight. I forget the name at the present moment, but
Is it Jake Hadley?
he was able to defend all the takedowns. Jake Hadley. He was able to defend all the takedowns from Jake Hadley and beat him up on the feet. Surrey City, I just think, has more explosivity here early on, and we're just going to see Cameron Smotherman get caught early. But I believe if Smotherman were to extend this fight, City's poor defense could also come into play here. But I do like City, and I like him early.
Yeah, this should be a highly contested one at 135 pounds. I like the backing of this one. Should be a good one to watch, and I expect a victory as well. Quite early on, I talked about City, Smotherman not being able to sort of take them shots and move forward. Should be a quick one, as you mentioned. I 100% agree with that pick as well. Next one we have at 155 pounds. Jeremy Stephens is back inside the UFC. That is one of the most left field balls that we've seen inside the UFC this year. It came out left field, this one. Jeremy Stephens, off the back of a BKFC run, a bare knuckle run, having not fought inside the UFC for a few years now. Even MMA, I believe he's not fought inside the UFC in MMA for a few years. There we go. You're 2022 against the Tan Shuttle in the PFL Championships. Has not fought MMA since then. He has since, obviously, you can see there, gone on a 3-fight bare knuckle boxing win streak, beating Eddie Alvarez in his last one. But this is MMA. This is completely different. His last win does come against Miles Price, but before that, as you can see here, a lot of losses. I expect him to lose against Mason Jones, and not because he's Welsh, but I think Mason Jones will have a lot more to give. I think he's slick at striking. He's got great grappling as well. Yeah, he's very good at mixing it up. He's a big man. He's 5'10", reach advantage. He's a heavy favorite according to Tapology. The younger man. I think all the positives are on Mason Jones' side. I expect them to get the win. I think the UFC have only brought Jeremy Stephens back because it's in his hometown.
Wait, who the fuck is that guy? No, Jeremy Stephens is the hardest hitting 145er. And at 155, he still has that power. He fought Rafael Dos Anjos, the former lightweight champion, and actually knocked him out. So Mason Jones could be in for a tough night if he gets caught. But he's a smart guy. He left the UFC because he didn't really feel he was ready for the big show yet. He goes on Cage Warriors, destroys everybody in Cage Warriors. Now he's back, and he trains at Team Alpha Male. That wrestling is legit. He was able to show it even against David Onama in Onama's debut. So Jeremy Stephens is going to get taken out a lot here. He was doing bare knuckle boxing. He wasn't training any wrestling during that time. So it's not going to hold up. And the durability is not going to be what it once was for Jeremy Stephens, especially at 155, because he was, as I said, he's a featherweight. So getting hit by even harder guys. The Eddie Alvarez fight doesn't tell me that much because Eddie Alvarez is older. He's 40 now, taking so much damage in his career. So I think Mason Jones actually knocks him out in round 2 after wearing him out with a little bit of wrestling.
Yeah, I think this is a good fight for Jones to come back to inside the UFC. You mentioned him, going away, second back to the Cage Warriors, because he felt like he wasn't ready for the big show, even though he had, as you talked about, the win against David Onama, 4 wins outside the UFC in Cage Warriors, against Alexander Ribeiro, Jan Lanise, Bryce Logan, Michelle Pagnini in his last one. He seems like he's ready now. He wanted it, and now he gets it against a legend inside, what I say, a great fighter inside the sport, in Jeremy Stephens, who's had a lot of UFC experience, coming off 3 fights in bare knuckle where he got the win, and obviously his big one against Eddie Alvarez last time. But I don't think that's going to help him. You mentioned him not being, probably not as concentrated on MMA, having these, bare boxing fights. I don't think it's going to pay dividends. I think he's going to lose to Mason Jones, and maybe a knockout, as you mentioned, is going to be, possible for Mason Jones. He's had a few knockouts. Last one was against Bryce Logan in his few fights ago. The knees and up against the clinch, and he got the fight. He does hit hard. I expect him to be the bigger man, obviously, on Fight Night as well. Should be a great one. Mason Jones is back inside the UFC. That's all I care about, and I think he's going to get a big win. Against Jeremy Stephens. I think the UFC have only brought Stephens back because, as I mentioned, hometown maybe lacked a little bit of star power, and Mason Jones is the man across him that night.
Yeah, this is a fantastic fight. Two returning guys. And we want to talk about returns. Miesha Tate is back after a long layoff. I'm not sure what it was about, but always good to see her back, the former champion.
Absolutely. Miesha Tate, as you mentioned, a long layoff. 2023 in December was the last time she came. She walked inside the octagon. That was against Julia Avila that night. She got the rear naked choke. She takes on Yana Santos, who 15-8 in her career. Last win last time out was against Chelsea Chandler. This one for me, I've got Miesha Tate written all over it. I do. I think she's the better grappler. I think striking, this could get a little bit nervy. I think Yana Santos, being the bigger woman, technically feels a little bit longer inside the cage. I think the kicks of Yana could be really good, the strikes as well. But I expect Miesha to get inside the clinch, get the body lock, and eventually get this fight to the ground. And I think we see another submission victory for Cupcake.
Yeah, for Yana, she's a clinch bully. This is what she does. Not super exciting, not a knockout threat, not a submission threat. She wants to clinch, and she wants to get takedowns if they're open. The problem is she's fighting Miesha Tate, who was an accomplished wrestler, will have more strength in the clinch, if you ask me. And if Yana initiates a clinch, it'll be bad news for her because she'll get taken down as a result. So I think Miesha Tate gets a lot of control time here, and I think she gets a lot of ground and pound going. We could potentially see a late finish here because with Yana Santos, I think she's I don't know. I feel like she peaked many years ago, and Miesha Tate, despite her age, despite the fact that she had really long layoffs, she comes back looking very determined, in great shape every time. So I'm really confident on the Miesha side here, decision or finish late.
Yeah, completely agree. Miesha should get the victory in both of our eyes. That's how we see it going, 135 pounds in the women's bantamweight division. Next one, we've got the males, 185 pounds, middleweight division between Azamat Bekiev and Ryan Loder. Obviously, Azamat, coming into this, fight with, the experience, the wealth of experience into the octagon, while Loder, a promising talent, looks to make a statement in the middleweight division. Talk to me about this fight. 185 pounds of middleweight. Both guys, Azamat's about to be in his 30s. Loder 33. So, as they say, the time is now. He's got to make it happen now. He needs a big win.
Yeah, so a lot of people may be fooled by the Bekoyev last name. They may think he's some high-level prospect, some insane wrestler. No, this guy is a brawler. He's a big puncher. But Ryan Loder, he's exactly what you think Bekoyev is. He's a very strong wrestler. In fact, he's been training with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez before he was in the sport. So he won the Ultimate Fighter with ground and pound. He's been known to just obviously have his limitations on the feet, but if he gets to the ground, he's going to win these fights. And I believe he's going to pull off a big upset here against the Russian. I think he gets a takedown in every round, and Bekoyev is going to struggle to get up. Even in some of these lower-level regional fights that Bekoyev had, he's getting taken down in these. So I cannot place any confidence in him as this big favorite. So I think Loder shocks everybody and wins this one by decision.
Yeah, I liked what I saw of Loder obviously on the Ultimate Fighter, winning it as well. Should be a highly contested one in this one, but I'm going to go with a moderate favorite with Azamat Bakayev. A lot of experience heading into this one. The younger man, should get the victory. Iron as well, so you expect him to come in with a good chin. If he's called Iron, I'll really be letting that down. A great one, 185 pounds, but I'm going with the Russian to get the victory in that one. But next one, we'll talk about Marina Rodriguez against Gillian Robertson. Marina Rodriguez, has been in these, I believe in these title fights, back in the time. Obviously, oh shit, I don't think she's actually ever been in a title fight. Actually,
No, she was in contender fights nonstop.
Yeah, beating Yao Xiaonan and Mackenzie Dern, but has fallen on some short times and some bad times as of late. 4-1 in her last fight. Her only win comes against Michelle Waters and Gomez. I mean, can't really take too many positives out of that one. Gillian Robertson, though, if you look at Gillian, a lot of momentum in this one. 3 fights back to back, beating Michelle Waters in as well, beating Poliana Viana, beating Luana Pinheiro in her last one. For me, I think this is quite an easy pick, and I'm predicting that Gillian Robertson gets in there and gets the victory. I think Gillian has been a fantastic asset to the 115 pound for a very long time now. I think she's elite, and especially her grappling. If she gets the back or even gets you down to the mat, it could be a wrap real quick. I think Marina Rodriguez, obviously having the background in Muay Thai, and striking, she wants to keep this one on striking, standing. Gina Robinson's not going to have that. I think she's going to come in early and look to get the takedowns quite quick and quite often. She's very active with the takedowns as well. I expect her to get the job done, get the fight to the mat, and I expect her to get her wrists wrapped around the Marina Rodriguez neck and get the rear naked choke victory.
One thing with the Marina Rodriguez, she may be losing these fights to these grapplers, but she still defends these submission attempts nonstop. Like the Mackenzie Dern fight was so impressive because Mackenzie would not stop chasing the submissions, and it didn't work out. Same thing with Virna, could not get a finish. Gillian Robertson, she's kind of been struggling to get finishes against these higher level opponents. When she's fighting these unranked women, she can choke them any day of the week, but some of these harder fights, it's been a little bit harder. So I think Gillian will dominate this fight, but I think eventually she just struggles to find a finish. But
Yeah.
I do love that Gillian's wrestling has improved, because back in the day when she couldn't get these takedowns, she would struggle. But now I see her getting these takedowns more easily and a little more aggressive with that ground and pound. I think we're seeing the proper evolution in Robertson's game. And as you mentioned, she is a future contender. There's no doubt about it. So I think she wins this one 30-26 with a 10-8 round mixed in there.
Yeah, should be a good one at 115 pounds in the women's division. We talk about 135 pounds next. We've got Gostan Bolaños versus Kiang Bang Lee. Right into this one after 2 losses back to back. Before that, though, he was undefeated, 8-0, riding a lot of momentum. Came inside the UFC, had Chris Gutierrez in his first pass inside the UFC. Quite a harsh booking from the UFC on his debut. He didn't lose that. He didn't win that night. He got the he lost. Chris Gutierrez got the win. Then he faced a Long Xiao. He got beaten in that one. He got knocked out. Not a great look. If you look at Gostan Bolaños, though, he came from Bellator, I do believe, straight into the UFC. If you look at how he likes to fight, a striker, very good striker. Had fought in, I believe, fought in Glory, Bellator kickboxing. So he has a good background. But he came inside the UFC. He had that win against Aaron Phillips. Got knocked out against Marcus McGee. Another win in his last fight. This one for me is tightly contested. A battle between 2 bantamweights who are looking to gain momentum. Oscar, who have you got? Gostan Bolaños, who sort of been in the UFC a little bit longer, had wins as well. Obviously being 2-1 inside the UFC, whereas Kang Lee, unfortunately, 0-2.
Yeah, with King Lee, he does have some okay grappling, but it's not like he's this big finisher getting tons of submissions or ground and pound. Bolaños, on the other hand, he's got legit finishing power in these fights. Sure, he didn't finish Cortavius Romeus, but Romeus was hurt really bad many times in that fight. Quang Lee getting knocked out in round 1 of his last fight, that's bad news. I think Bolaños is going to find the chin. I think he has better striking than Quang Lee's last opponent, so I think he eventually finds the finish. I'll say round 2 there's a reason he's the favorite. The striking advantage here is pretty big.
100% should be a good one. 155 pounds in the bantamweight division on this week, and I expect Gastos Blanco to get the victory. I think he's proved himself inside the UFC more than obviously Zhang Li has thus far, so he should get the victory. 8-4 in his career, slight favourite according to Tapology. He's called the Dream Killer. Let's see if he potentially kills the dream of Zhang Li this weekend and makes him 0-3 inside the promotion. Next one, we got a heavyweight bout between Dontel Maines and Thomas Peterson. Dontel Maines is a ranked heavyweight inside the UFC when he beat Gal Machado, but now obviously falling a little bit of hard times against Shamal Giziev and Volta Walker. Takes on Thomas Peterson, who's 9-3 in his career, also coming off a loss against Shamil Giziev. This one, a tough one to call, a battle between two heavyweights. That with Dontel Maines, I think we always expect like a bit of a sloppy fight, but it also feels like he sort of thrives in these sloppy environments. And kind of grinds himself out to a victory. Oscar, a battle between two heavyweights that are looking to get a victory. Who have we got?
I'm pretty confident in Thomas Peterson here. Thomas Peterson has shown pretty good wrestling. Sure, it failed against Shamil Giziev, but Giziev is not too bad himself, despite the memes. Dontel Maines, we've seen him get controlled up against the cage in many of these fights. He's doing his best when he's just striking at distance. But I think Peterson closes the distance, gets a lot of control time, and wins this on the judges' scorecards. It's pretty tough watching these heavyweight fights you just know are going with a full 15.
Yeah, with heavyweights, you get one or the other. It's either you get a knockout in 30 seconds or a minute, or you're getting a 15-minute laying on top of each other. Wishing the family are not watching while you're watching. You're introducing them to MMA. Let's see what happens. But I think Dontel Maines. I'm going with Dontel Maines in this one. Experience inside the UFC, has a few decent wins. As you can see, there 4-6 inside the UFC. I'm just going with that UFC experience to lead him across the line. Once upon a time was a ranked heavyweight. I don't know how. He's beat Andrei Arlovski. That was obviously not Andrei Arlovski in the prime of his career, but a few wins. But this one should not be a good one to watch. But let's see what happens. First fight of the evening, we got Juliana Miller against Ivana Petrovic. Juliana Miller, you might remember, obviously came off the Ultimate Fighter, won it against Brogan Walker, but since winning it, felt on hard times. I could see them losing to Veronica Hardy and Luana Santos. This is a tough one for her. Looking to kind of make a statement in her career and turn it all the way back around. Obviously, looking at Ivana Petrovic, she came inside the UFC of Erez FC champion over there in France, lost and then won and now lost. Oscar at 115 pounds, 125 pounds. This should be a tough one to call. Juliana Miller is the underdog, and I think that's justified. She's 3-3 inside her career. I think the Ultimate Fighter was a route that she was quite fast-tracked. It came inside the UFC. I think we're finding out. Obviously I talked about levels earlier. I think this could be another scenario where Ivana kind of shows them levels where she had a lot more fights outside. Well, I say a lot more, a couple more fights inside the UFC, fought for a belt, won a belt. I expect it to pay dividends on the night.
I believe Juliana Miller is going to come back with improved skills. She's been away, 2 years now? So that says to me it wasn't necessarily injuries. It was just her realizing that she was a straight-up rookie. She came into the Ultimate Fighter house with almost no experience, so she was getting these wins, and then we really saw her limitations when she fought Luana Santos. Not necessarily like the best striker out there, but she destroyed her on the feet. And the thing with Ivana Petrovic, not necessarily this huge striking threat. And we've seen her get controlled a lot. And Jamlyn Horth was able to do it, get some takedowns. And off of her back, not that much to offer. So I think Juliana Miller, if she can clinch her up, get a couple of takedowns, she could get this big upset as this underdog. So I think she wins by decision here. I don't see her having this big enough grappling advantage where she gets a TKO or a submission on the ground, but the control time, I think, will materialize for Miller, who's going to have better skills. Also, that 3-3 record may be really ugly, but 2 of those wins she had were inside the house, considered exhibitions, but I see those as real wins.
Yeah, I'm going with Ivano Petric in this one. This one's going to be the Told You So fight of the week, and it's the first one, Oscar. High stakes on the first fight in this weekend. Talk to me about, the card overall. We've got some fantastic fights. The main event, Corey Sandhagen with Davison Figueiredo and Rene Derrida, Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel could be on the pay-per-view main card, or at least on the pay-per-view. Should be a good event in front of fans. We talked about UFC, going all out and fans, delivering and putting some good fights. Are you happy with this card on the weekend? Are you impressed?
I am. If you're watching these weekly Apex cards like we are, this is a banger of a card. This is about as good as the UFC can do, because we know that they save the biggest, best fights for the pay-per-view. So this is, exactly what a fight night should be. It should be on the road, and it should have a very strong main event with a solid co-main event and a couple of very exciting fights sprinkled in there. This is what they're doing. I like it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Should be a great event this weekend. And that pretty much wraps us up, Oscar. Good to be joined by you once again. I'm not too sure what it is next week. You might be able to remind me of that, though.
I can't remember at the top of my head either, to be honest. I can look it up.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, will be there. We know they're still keeping it. Oh, it's the pay-per-view. How could we forget? Remember the name, Bilal Muhammad. How could you forget his name, Lenny? How dare you? He's fighting Jack Della Maddalena. And co-main event, we have Valentina Shevchenko defending against Manon Fiorot. I think we're going to have a new champion in that co-main event with Manon Fiorot. She's been on the outside of the title picture for so long. But that main event, people like to make fun of Bilal and whatnot. But I think it's actually going to be a pretty fun fight, because Bilal, I think he's going to strike more than we expect him to. He's going to threaten the takedowns, but on the feet, he's going to put on a high pace, apply some pressure. I think Jack Della Maddalena does have a decent shot of winning that fight, though.
Yeah, I agree. Should be a great one. Highly contested, 170 pounds. You're going to have to find out next week who I'm going to pick. Should be a good one. We talked about Valentina Shevchenko, Manon Fiorot, and in that one as well. Alexa Grasso, Natalia Silva, and Jose Aldo. Just always good to see Jose Aldo back inside the octagon. And Jessica Andrade, Jasmine Justivicius. Pretty good card in Canada. They have been spoiled rotten. The Canadians do not always have the best luck with their own fighters winning. I wish them all the best of luck. We're going to find out how it all plays out next week. But yeah, make sure you catch us then as we talk about it, and we'll give our picks. And we're graced with our picks to you. But thank you very much for joining us. Oscar, any last sending off words before we let them all go?
Yeah, good luck to those 100 men that have to fight that gorilla someday.
Yeah, if you have been on social media and been looking at the conversation, an interesting topic of would 100 men beat a gorilla? What is your hot take on that, Oscar?
No, the gorilla wins. Unless they have some insane tactics, I think the gorilla mauls them.
What if it's 100 Eddie Halls?
Now he wins. The Eddie Hall team, they win. Those guys would just be overwhelming.
Yeah, 100 Eddie Halls. I don't know if you did get to catch his fight on the weekend, but it did.
I did. Buchanowski, KSW, a super quick finish. That's the kind of freak show fights we're missing in the sport. We haven't gotten these since like Pride FC. They asked him if he wanted to fight, for instance, in Ngannou, and I won't put it as crass as he did, but he said, "No way, no way."
I would love to see Eddie Hall and Ryzen. Could you imagine throwing it back a little bit, feeling them Pride vibes? Him inside a bit of a ring. Bring Bob.
Put him in there. Put him in there with Roog.
That would be so good. That would be so good. Even Bob Sapp. Get Bob Sapp back out.
Yeah, we know Bob Sapp will return, or Butterbean for the. Now we're getting crazy.
Yeah, should be a good one. But Eddie Hall winning of what crazy world we living in. Francis Ngannou, and he said if the money's right, he would.
Well, you never know because they do have Saudi backing the PFL, so they could be talked into it. They really could.
They absolutely could. Let's see what happens. But yeah, make sure you catch us next week as we talk about UFC 315 and what happened this weekend. Corey Sanhagen versus Davison Figueiredo. Should be a banging card in front of fans again this weekend. This is what we want. This is what we're living for. The momentum in the UFC is picking up now. Should be good. Thank you very much.